Hello everyone and welcome to my first Christmas card of this year. Last year I started with this card where I crocheted a Christmas tree and I thought it would be a fun idea to do something with crochet again, so I decided to crochet a snowflake. This video is more for those who already know how to crochet, but for every stitch I will do, I will have links to tutorials from other people here on YouTube in the description below if you wish to learn. And you can always ask me in the comments. Let's get through the products I will be using. I have a yarn. This is the type of a yarn I use all the time when I'm making doilies. I think if I used wool it would be too thick. And I decided to use a white yarn, but the color is up to you. Then I also have a hook in the size 1.5mm. And to make the card, I have a card base. I make my own card bases, but you can also buy these pre-made. I also will be adding a greeting at the end, just a simple Merry Christmas. And I will be heat embossing it in white, so I have an embossing powder and Versamark ink for that. One more thing I forgot to add here, and that is a liquid glue to adhere the snowflake onto the card base. So the pattern for the snowflake I found on Pinterest. The type of patterns I prefer are with symbols. I really don't like those with text, like row 1 do this, row 20 do this. These just confuse me. So I was looking for a pattern that has symbols, and this is the pattern. It's a little bit blurry, but it happened to be the perfect size. I will leave the link to it in the description below as well as on my blog. And in this video I will be telling you what I'm doing anyway, so you can follow that. Also, before I begin, since there is a difference between the US and UK terms, it turns out I'm using the US terms. So let's get started. I began by doing a chain and I chained 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then I joined it together by doing a slip stitch into the first chain, which creates a ring. The first round of stitches consists of repeat of 3 double crochet and 3 chains, and it repeats 6 times. For the first round, I started by doing 3 chains, like so, which counts as first double crochet, and then I did 2 double crochet. Next, I chained 3, and again I did 3 double crochet and chained 3 until I had 6 of both. Also, I'm not sure if this is the correct way to do. I think it is. Let me know in the comments. But when there is a chain, I do not put my hook into each chain of the ring. I go beneath the chain. This is when I'm doing something like doilies. Usually you have more stitches than there are chains anyway. And I do this every time when there is a chain from the previous round and I need to do a stitch over it. I think this way it just looks much neater. I just don't know 100% if this is something you're supposed to do. And also when it comes to the chain that creates the ring, I take the excess yarn and I hold it beneath the chain and weave it in. This way I do not have to do that at the end. And sometimes it might feel that there is not enough space for the stitches in the ring. What I do, I just squeeze them together. As I assume people watching this already know how to crochet, I have sped up the video quite a bit. I will also skip through some parts as the pattern repeats, but you will find a written description over on my website. So to finish up the first round, I crocheted the last 3 chains and then I did a slip stitch into the 3rd chain, which is the first double crochet of this round. And this is how the snowflake looks like after the first round. Moving on to the second round. The second round consists of 3 double crochet, 5 chains, 3 double crochet, and 1 chain. This repeats 6 times and you put these stitches over the 3 chains of the previous round. That means the second round starts where the first chain of the previous round is. So you will need to skip the first set of the double crochet of the previous round. And to get there, after I did the slip stitch to join the first round together, I did a slip stitch for the 2 double crochet below and once over the chain. Once I was at the correct spot, I chained 3. Again, this represents the first double crochet, and then I did 2 double crochet. Next, I chained 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I did 3 double crochet. Again, since I'm working over the chain, I do not put my hook through each chain when I do the double crochet, but I go under it. And this is how the first set of stitches looks like. Next, I chained 1 and I repeated the process. Into the 3 chains of the previous round, I did 3 double crochet, 5 chains, 3 double crochet, and 1 chain. Altogether, you repeat this 6 times. To finish up the second round, I chained 1 after the 3 double crochets, and then I did a slip stitch into the 3rd chain that I started the round with, that represents the first double crochet. And this is how it looks like after the second round. So let's move to the 3rd round. Again, the stitches are only placed over the chains, in this case the 5 chains of the previous round. And it goes 3 double crochet, 3 chains, 3 double crochet, 5 chains, 3 double crochet, 3 chains, and 3 double crochet. And you repeat this 6 times. To start the first stitch, here again you will need to get to the chain. So just like in the round 2, you will need to get there by doing the slip stitch, 2 slip stitches into each of the double crochet below, and 1 more over the chain. To start the round, you chain 3, and then you do 2 double crochet, then you chain 3, and then you do again 3 double crochet like so. Next, you chain 5, and then you repeat 3 double crochet, 3 chains, and 3 double crochet. If you have problems fitting the stitches onto the chain, just squeeze them in with your fingers. And this is how the first set of stitches look like. Here you don't need to chain 1, you will go directly to the next set of stitches and repeat it 5 more times, finishing with a slip stitch into the first chain of this round. The round 3 is finished. For the round 4, I had a little problem reading the pattern as the photo is not so sharp, but I think I mostly managed to figure it out. The last round mainly consists of single crochet. Again, I'm using US names. In German, it's called Festemache. I will play this a little bit slower so you can see. I started by chaining 1, which represents a single crochet stitch. And then I did a single crochet into every double crochet I did for the round before. And over the smaller chain of 3, I did 5 single crochet. So there are 3 double crochet in the row before, and over it I did 3 single crochet. The first one is represented by 1 chain. Then there is a gap below that consists of 3 chains. Here I did 5 single crochet, and then I did a single crochet over each of the 3 double crochet afterwards. Next, there is this bigger gap that consists of 5 chains. This is a little bit more complex. Here I started with 2 single crochet, like so, and then I did something called Picot. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. To do a Picot, you chain 3, and then you do a slip stitch into the first chain. And after I created the Picot, I did a slip stitch to attach it to the chain below. Here the pattern was a little bit too blurry for me, so it's either just a Picot or you can chain 1, do the Picot and chain 1 before doing the slip stitch. It is completely up to you. I tried both and both work. Next I chained 3, then I did 2 double crochet and I chained 3 again. And to attach it to the chain below, I did a slip stitch. Next, I repeated the pattern that I did on the other side of the chain. So I did again the Picot, 3 chains, slip stitch to the first chain, and slip stitch to attach it to the chain below. Then still over the chain of 5, I did 2 single crochet, and then 3 single crochet over the 3 double crochet below, 5 single crochet over the 3 chains of the previous round, and lastly 3 single crochet over the 3 double crochet below. So here you can see the finished section, and you repeat it 5 more times. I will just skip to the end as I simply do the same. I know it might sound a little bit complicated when I just explain it with words. That's why I prefer a pattern with a picture, with symbols, rather than a text. But overall, if you know how to crochet, this snowflake is very easy to make. And I will have the link to the pattern and full description over on my blog. I'm not sure how long it took me, especially because I made a mistake and I had to go back a row. But luckily it's not a doily and I was not on row 20. I would say it took me about an hour overall, including making the card, which is way less time than the card I will be making next week where I'm going to be stamping. Anyways, I completed the last section of the pattern and then I finished it by fastening off the yarn and weaving in the ends, just to secure it so the stitches don't unravel. To fasten off the crochet, after I did a slip stitch into the first stitch of the round, in this case it was the single crochet, which I always have difficulty to find as it's almost invisible. Then I cut off the yarn at about 10 to 15 centimeters from the hook, and then with the hook I just pulled the yarn through, super easy. So next, to tidy the loose strings, I used a needle with a blunt end. Actually, I needed it only for the end yarn because, as I said at the beginning, I weaved in the yarn as I was doing the stitches around the ring. This way the yarn is already underneath the stitches, and when I'm finishing the project, I just cut the yarn. To finish up the top, I put the yarn through the needle and went underneath the stitches to hide it. I do not really have a good process for this, so when you think it's hidden, then you cut it off. Since this is technically a tiny doily, you can block it if you want. I will leave a link how to do it in the description below. What I did to stretch it out a little bit, off camera I used an iron with a steam function and I just stretched it a bit and flattened it out. So now let's make the card. I started with the greeting. I'm using a Merry Christmas stamp from a very old stamp set by Crochet Snowflake. If you don't have a sentiment stamp, you can just write it with a white gel pen. And because I'm going to heat emboss it, I started by treating the cardstock with an anti-static powder. Then I stamped it with the Versamark ink, which is a sticky ink that will hold the embossing powder. Then I sprinkled the embossing powder over it, and using my heat tool, I melted the powder. The cardstock warped a bit, but a few days after, when I was taking the photos of the card, it was already flattened. Next, I adhered the snowflake onto the card base. I put a few dots of glue on a few sections on the back of the snowflake. The glue is the multi-medium matte adhesive from Ranger, but any good craft glue would do. And then I flipped the snowflake and I attached it to the card base. I put an acrylic block on top of it to press it down, and after a few minutes the snowflake was adhered. I hope you will try making this snowflake yourself, but if you prefer something easier to crochet, check out my last year's card where I crocheted a Christmas tree. And if you feel like it, you can also check out a playlist that I created with all of my Christmas cards. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video with another Christmas card idea.